Our first guest, as I mentioned, he's the national recruiting analyst for ESPN. Gerry Hamilton is with us. Good morning, Gerry. How are you?
I'm great, man. Counting down the hours here.
Man, I know you are, and I appreciate you, carving out a little time for us because I know you're busy. Hey, let's get right to it, and let's start with the ESPN 300 before we talk about Alabama specifically and some other teams. And it's done. I'm looking at it right now. Trey Smith, the offensive tackle out of Jackson, Tennessee, who has a Tennessee commitment, is number one on your list. The highest-rated Alabama commitment is Dylan Moses, the linebacker, originally from Baton Rouge, now out of the IMG Academy in Bradenton, who's already enrolled. Talk to me a little bit, Gerry, about how you guys go about putting together this list each year. I know you've got a lot of different people that have input. How do you put together your top 300?
Well, we're big on the video evaluation and not just highlights. We're talking about games here.
Right.
The game's played in pads. It will always be played in pads, and that is the first key in evaluation, is evaluating these prospects, and thousands of them in every class, every year. And it starts after a sophomore season, in watching those guys on game video, and really getting an evaluation based off of that, and then, attacking the job just like college coaches attack that job. They evaluate these guys on video. They have a scouting report on those guys, or they have a list of guys they really like. Then we go out, we see those kids.
Yeah, I know you.
I go to a lot of a lot of combine camps and all that good stuff, to where you kind of check your boxes to make sure everything you see on video is what you see in person. So that's kind of how we attack the evaluation process.
Yeah, I know, like you said, right after their sophomore season, you get on it, so there's a lot of time and effort put into it. Alabama was in the hunt for Trey Smith and recruited him very diligently. He reportedly grew up an Alabama fan, but we know his sister works in the athletic department there at UT, and he decided to go with the Vols. What is it about Trey Smith that made him number one on your list?
One very athletic offensive lineman, could play either tackle spot, very versatile, very smart football player. But the one thing about it that kind of pushed him over the top was he's tenacious. He is tough. He is physical. He is a finisher. He's not an athlete coming in that you wonder, okay, is this guy going to take it up with his physicality at the next level? He already has that. And I think that's when you combine everything, especially the mental approach to the game, he's cerebral. He's going to be able to pick up scheme. He's not going to be confused. I think.
All right, looks like we might have lost Gerry. It sounds like just a weak signal might have faded out just a little bit. James is going to try to call him back, get him right back on the line. Sometimes that happens on these telephones, and weak signal there. He was on a good roll, but James, try to get Gerry back on. In the meantime, I'll run down the ESPN 300 for you. The top 10, and Alabama has 2 commitments. Trey Smith is number 1, offensive tackle committed to Tennessee. Isaiah Wilson is number 2. Pardon me, offensive tackle committed to Georgia. Jalen Phillips, outside linebacker, is number 3, committed to UCLA. Marvin Wilson is the highest-rated non-committed player out there. He is at number 4 out of Houston, Texas. LSU and others lead his list. And Dylan Moses, the linebacker already enrolled at Alabama, is at number 5. And we've got Gerry Hamilton back on the line. Gerry, you with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, man, lost you there for a moment, but you were talking about what makes Trey Smith so special, the fact that he's number 1 on the ESPN 300 list.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's the one thing they have to frame to be athletic, but it's the tenacity. It's how smart he is. A lot of times with the offensive linemen kids, they need have that developmental time in front of them, and you wonder, are they going to be able to physically take it up a notch where they have to the next level? We had none of those questions with Trey Smith. His tenacity and the way he approaches the game, how hard he works, and he's a cerebral kid. He's going to be able to pick up scheme. I think he's going to go into Knoxville. I think he's already there. I think it's going to be a smooth transition for him, and I expect to see him on the field a lot next year.
Yeah, they need help at offensive tackle. Hey, let's get to Alabama right now in the ratings. Alabama is number 1. Ohio State is number 2. These are the ESPN rankings. Georgia 3, Michigan 4, Florida State 5. Now, I look at Alabama's class, Gerry, and, you could wrap a bow on it right now, and it would have a chance to be number 1. But there's still work to be done, evidently, particularly if there is one hole, it looks like it's in the defensive line. And Alabama continues to recruit defensive linemen, a lot of them. Aubrey Solomon, LeBron Ray, Fedarian Mathis, Jerez Parks. Just talk about what they're trying to get done there in these next 24 hours on the defensive line.
Hey, you hit on it. Everybody that just looks at Alabama says, "Oh, they're loaded at every position." Now they're just bringing on 5-star guys on top of 5-star guys. That's not the case. Alabama has a need on the defensive line, and I think that the Alabama fans know that. They've lost a lot of talent there in the last couple of years, and that is really their key position of need right now. Aubrey Solomon locked in a battle with Michigan. A lot of people think maybe Michigan's been trending for him. He's a one-time Michigan commitment. LeBron Ray, to me, is the must-get guy out of the state up in Madison, Alabama. He was tremendous at the Under Armour All-America game with us. Kind of has a frame similar to Leonard Williams, who ended up doing great things at USC. I'm not saying he's going to be a top 10 pick, but he has that type of frame and that type of ability. They really do need to hit on Fedarian Mathis is announcing this afternoon around 4 p.m. That would be a big one. He is a high upside, high ceiling player. Alabama really needs to hit on 2 or 3 of these guys to really shore up their depth and ensure that they have those numbers where they want, because they're going to get talented football players that really get that depth and those numbers where they want it to be. Then with Alabama in this class, there's still 7 ESPN 300 prospects that are in on. We hit on the defensive line. Wide receivers, another interesting one. Henry Ruggs out of the state of Alabama there, and then Devontae Smith out of Louisiana. I think they probably split those guys. Maybe they get both. Is Nick Saban, and I don't want to sound like I'm doubting him here, but the chances are they probably split those guys, but you walk away with one of those guys on top of Jerry Judy and Tyrell Shavers, who are both already on campus, and you're very happy.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Hey, let me ask you this, because in this part of the country, we always just say Nick Saban will figure it out or Alabama has a plan. I am curious. You're sitting here with Alabama at 25 commitments, and supposedly there's the 25-85 rule. And I know that, Akil Byers has already announced he's going to junior college. There's a couple other with grade issues commitment-wise. And, of course, there's a chance the kicker may, what we call, I guess now, blue shirt, where he may enroll and not be on scholarship right away. But, you look at this class and it looks full, yet here they are recruiting at least a half dozen prospects. How do they work this out numbers-wise every year?
Well, you just kind of explained how it happens.
I explained my own question, did I?
You answered your own question. Yeah, absolutely. In a lot of schools have to figure that out, because when you have the ability to amass that type of talent, you have to play with the numbers a little bit. But you hit on the main thing. Akil Byers is going to sign with East Mississippi Community College. He is not. We don't consider him part of the class at this point. A couple other guys have great issues that they got to work out, and then you mentioned the kicker. So it's going to work out, and that's why I said Alabama's in on 7 ESPN 300 players still. But if you look at it, they hit on 2 or 3 of those defensive linemen and 1 wide receiver. That's 3 to 4 spots right there, and that pretty much gets them where they're going to end up and where they want to be. So the numbers always seem to work out, but you did a great job answering the question.
We're visiting with Gerry Hamilton, national recruiting analyst for ESPN. You can follow him on Twitter, and I would urge you to do so, at Hamilton ESPN. All right, let's break down this Bama class a little bit, and I am curious about Nagi Harris, because you guys have him at 11, which, let's be clear, that's really, really high. That's really high. Right. But you've got him behind Cam Akers out of Clinton, Mississippi, who's a Florida State commitment at running back. A lot of the other services that I've seen in recruiting sites have him either number 1 or number 2 in the country. So, again, he's really highly rated, but you've got Cam Akers ahead of him. What is it about Nagi Harris that pushes him down just a little bit in the ESPN 300 as compared to some of these other lists?
Well, I think they're both tremendous players, obviously. You're splitting hairs on those 2 guys, because here's what I like about both of those guys. And I'm not dodging the question. I think they have very similar skill sets. They are both excellent receivers out of the backfield. They're every down backs. And I don't think you find many of those guys that, Derrick Henry goes to Alabama. He wins the Heisman Trophy. Not a great pass catcher out of the backfield. A guy like Nagi Harris can play. He's an every down back. Cam Akers, an every down back. Cam Akers to us has that running back body type. He's 5'11". He's going to be 220 pounds, maybe a tad more explosiveness. But again, you're really splitting hairs there. They're both tremendous backs. They're both difference maker backs and true 5-star running backs. But Nagi Harris is a thing I love about him. Really hard worker. He catches the ball so well out of the backfield. He's a willing blocker in pass protection. He's a complete player leaving high school.
Dylan Moses, ESPN has him at number 5. We've known about Dylan Moses since the 8th grade out of Baton Rouge. Of course, finished up at the IMG Academy there in Bradenton, already enrolled here at UA. I know he's got an incredible amount of athleticism and speed. How do you project him as a linebacker at this level?
Dylan's a really interesting topic. He really came a long way in the last year as a linebacker. Played running back and linebacker early on in his career in Baton Rouge. Then when he goes over to IMG Academy, does a little bit of both, but really focused in and honed in on linebacker his senior year. We thought he made a huge jump as a senior on video as a linebacker and really showed what he can be as he continues to develop, learns the nuances of the position, really learns all the technique involved with it, because as an athlete, he is tremendous. I can tell you at IMG, he was considered the hardest working player down there in a group of big-time football prospects. He went down there and was all business, did everything they asked him to do. And if that continues, to me, when I look at all these kids and they're ranked high, you wonder, the biggest question you have is who's going to maximize their talent? Because so many times that separates these kids. I have no doubt in my mind that Dylan Moses is a focused kid, and he's going to maximize his talent, and that gives him a very high ceiling because athletically he's got gifts that a lot of people just don't have.
Another player in the ESPN 300 top 10 for Alabama is Alex Leatherwood, the offensive tackle out of Booker T. Washington in Pensacola. I saw him when he came in for some of the bowl practices when he was able to enroll early. Just a monster physically. I mean, this kid is huge. Did not play on a very good team, but still rated in the top 10. What have you seen from Alex Leatherwood?
One, he has to turn sideways to fit through a door. His shoulders are so broad. I mean, and you saw that in person. It's amazing how broad his shoulders are. Again, this class, when we first looked at it, we thought it was a special offensive line class nationally, especially at offensive tackle. And some of these kids like Alex could play guard or tackle. He could begin his career at guard possibly and move out the tackle. He has the ability to do either one, right tackle or guard. But the thing that continued to impress about Alex Leatherwood was how competitive he was, no matter what environment we saw. And he was highly rated. He was considered a 5-star prospect for well over a year. But that did not keep him from being a tremendous competitor in any environment he was at. For instance, I live in South Florida, so I was at Miami Hurricanes Paradise Camp last summer, and he was there. Well, a lot of top kids may not really go in and take the one-on-ones there and compete. They're just there to shake hands, see the campus, do the recruiting thing. Alex Leatherwood took more reps than anybody did that day. And that's what's always impressed all of us about Alex Leatherwood, is that his competitive nature, his toughness, his physicality. And I know that impressed his high school coach, Charlie Ward, as well. One
other prospect I want to ask you about, of course, as you said, with your Florida connections, you've seen a lot of Jerry Judy, Amari Cooper, Calvin Ridley, and now Jerry Judy out of Deerfield Beach.
Not
Number
bad.
20 in the country, tremendous hands, a great route runner. You think he, and even in a place like Alabama, he's another one of these guys that can step in and play right away?
Yeah, I really do believe he can, especially since he's already enrolled. I think that was big for him because he does need to get stronger. He needs to add that physical development to his frame, and he's done a little bit of that from his sophomore year when I first saw him to his senior year. He has a little bit of physical development. He needs to take a step there to handle the rigors of college football. And I think being an early enrollee is going to set him on the path to do that and get on the field next year. What he is a natural route runner. Now, he's as good a second move route runner as you'll see. He's got really good hands. He is physical. He can play through contact. For the Alabama fans that haven't really watched it, go find some of his old Tuttle tape when he was a sophomore. He played cornerback, and he was the most physical player on the field. That doesn't always come out at wide receiver, but you add to it smooth, natural route runner, really strong hands, and physical, and can run and change directions. And he is a really good second move route runner. He turns people around. He did it all Under Armour game week against the best corners in the country. I think he has the ability to be a very good player at Alabama and get on the field early.
National Signing Day Eve. We're wrapping up with Gerry Hamilton from ESPN. Jerry, you were kidding earlier, and we all say it, boy, 5 stars on top of 5 stars with Alabama. It is amazing because you'll remember, and we do too, obviously, that it wasn't always this way. Under Dennis Franchione and Mike Shula, there were some good players being signed here, but the elite weren't lining up to get in. How does Saban do it year after year, particularly when there are great players already here, and some of these guys know they're going to have to come in and wait their time? What is it about Nick Saban and this program at Alabama that he seems It's one thing to sign a great class and then maybe sign another, but to put them on top of each other time and time again, what's his secret, do you think?
Well, it's winning. You win at the highest level, and those players develop and go on to the NFL and make generational money, then kids will wait. Kids will have patience. And I think that's the main thing as far as part of that question goes, is when you win at that level and the families, not just the kids, the families see the results of kids' development and not having as many kids having an impact as a true freshman, but going through that process, as Coach Saban loves to say it, and really developing physically, mentally as football players, and then seeing the end results for all these kids when they get drafted. I mean, a guy like Reuben Foster's a 5-star linebacker, right? It really wasn't until the last couple of years where you saw all that talent we saw in high school, because he had to wait his turn. And as those guys continue to come through and have that success and go make that generational money for their families, and you continue to win at that level, there's really no stopping it in recruiting. I think the other part of it is they're so organized. Coach Saban is so organized in recruiting at Alabama. They do such a great job with the evaluation process that they're on top of their game in recruiting, probably as much or more than any staff in the country. In my years doing this, which is 16 years, so I think you put it all together, and it's just so well organized. It's run so well, and the development of the players has been so consistent coming through there that I think it just becomes that machine when you win at the level they do. I'll tell you the biggest thing for me, though, the most impressive thing when you look at Alabama is you talked about all these kids that have to wait their turn. The fact that you keep your locker room good and you have good continuity is the hardest thing to do. And the fact that they can continue to do that year, and that doesn't mean there aren't hiccups. There's some things that you never know in public and whatnot, but that happens on any team. But the fact that they keep that continuity going and they keep everybody on the same page with the same goal in mind is unbelievably impressive to me.
Gerry, on the national scene, as I said, ESPN has Alabama ranked number 1 right now. Things could still change, obviously, between now and signing day. In your mind, though, you think Alabama will do enough with closing out a couple of these prospects they're still recruiting to stay at that number 1 spot?
Yeah, I absolutely do. I think, you hit on 2 or 3 of those ESPN 300 kids left on the board, and I think it's going to be enough for Alabama to have their 5th number 1 class in 6 years with us at ESPN. And here's the other thing, too. All 3 of their 5-star kids are already enrolled. They have a top 15 class already enrolled, in fact. So it's not like they're in for a surprise or two where somebody may just back out of it. It would be very impactful in the recruiting rankings. I think they're pretty much set now. It's who they're going to add to it, and I think it's going to be tough for anybody to overcome them.
Finally, for some of our Auburn friends out there listening, you've got Auburn at number 9. It's been an up and down last couple of years for Gus Malzahn. What do you think about what they're doing?
I really like their class. Obviously, Jarrett Stidham was the big win, getting him in. He's already there. If he doesn't win the starting, and that's against Sean White, but if Jarrett Stidham's not the starting quarterback at Auburn next year, I'll be very surprised. I mean, we had him in the Under Armour All-America game. He was set to do great things at Baylor. There was talk that he was the most talented passer that Art Briles had ever recruited at Baylor, and that says a lot when you think about the quarterbacks he's recruited over the year. Kevin Kolb, Case Keenum, Robert Griffin. There's been a lot of guys that he's recruited, but there was a lot of talk that Jarrett Stidham was better than all of them as a passer naturally. So that should get Auburn fans excited. He's also a dual threat guy. He's a functional athlete. You can do some things in the run game with him. So that was a huge win for them. Offensive line, they've added some really solid offensive linemen. They've had some really good linebackers come through. Darian Moultrie's a kid I think you could see early on. They have some other developmental linebackers. So they're putting together a nice class, another top 10 level class. But the big one is getting Jarrett Stidham. If he comes in and he's as good as a lot of us think he is, that changes the Auburn offense.
One final thing on Auburn, Ryan Johnson, the defensive end out of St. Paul's Episcopal there in Mobile, did flip from Auburn to Stanford. Was that one that you guys saw coming, or did it catch people by surprise?
No, I think we were expecting Stanford for 2, 3, 4 weeks with Ryan. Even when he was down at the Under Armour All-America game, there was some Stanford talk around him, and December 31st, January 1st. So we weren't surprised by that one. Okay,
great stuff, Gerry. Again, you can follow Gerry Hamilton on Twitter. He is a terrific analyst, and we're thrilled to have him on for the first time and look forward to having you on again soon. And I know tomorrow will be nonstop, man, so try to get you a little rest tonight.
We'll do it, and thanks for having me on.